Hari Om. Now in this course we are going to study three main types of yoga. Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga and Karma Yoga. The one word is common, yoga. This word is common for all three. Even there are so many other yogas also. Everywhere the yoga word is there. And that is why we have to understand that yoga word. It is a target to be achieved by different ways. And those different ways are given the different names. But the target is same. And the target is same as we know yoga is to join. Joining Atman with Paramatman is yoga. In simple language, you can say development of Atman to the highest level of Paramatman is a yoga. That is a process, and this is a target. So merging Atman with Paramatman or Atman becoming Paramatman is yoga. And this is a target for all these different types of yoga. That is how the yoga word is used there. So we must use the word yoga when this is a target. In Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, Patanjali Yoga, Hatha Yoga, Mantra Yoga, Kundalini Yoga, Shaktipat Yoga, Kriya Yoga, all these are the yogas, different paths to attain the same target. But nowadays the yoga word has become very popular and it is misused also, wrongly. People, they select some asanas, some pranayams, they call it power yoga, even bear yoga, even dog yoga, whatever it is, it's very nonsense. That is a misuse of the word yoga, just to take the popularity. It is definitely wrong. But in Indian tradition, yogic tradition, all these Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, Patanjali Yoga, these are the right use of the word yoga because these are the different paths to achieve the final target of yoga, which is same for all. That is merging Atman with Paramatman. So we'll study from different paths, we'll study the three paths only. So let us start with Bhakti Yoga. Target is yoga. I need not repeat the same thing. But it is to be achieved through the path which is called Bhakti. So Bhakti is a path which will take the aspirant to the final aim of yoga. Now in Bhakti Yoga, there is called Ishta Devata as a target for the Bhakti or the devotee. So he has to travel from the existing condition to the level of Ishta Devata. Ishta Devata, we can call it as a god also in English. It doesn't make any difference. Now Bhakta is an aspirant who is traveling on this path or who wants to travel on this path. And Bhakti is a path. So in one sentence, I can say Bhakti is a total unconditional devotion of Bhakta towards Ishta Devata. That is, there is devotion. So Bhakti Yoga is a path of devotion, we can say. Totally devote everything. Not only the property, but the body and mind also. And finally the soul also, or the Atman also. So this is a total devotion. And unconditional. There are no conditions. Just devotion. And those who can do like this, then only they can become Bhakta. If the person doesn't have this mental tendency, he cannot become bhakta, he cannot do bhakti yoga. He has to select some other path. So losing the total ego, we can say, is devotion. So this needs unconditional and intense love for God. We can call this as a real love, where he can sacrifice everything for the God. And that is what I call it devotion. Now the devotion manifests in singing bhajanas in particular, which is called kirtanas also. Both these words are used, bhajan or kirtan, they are similar. This is the main manifestation of this devotion. Totally losing identity while chanting bhajanas and kirtanas. Now this total devotion, as I already explained, or we can say surrendering to the God, helps to channelize his or her emotions. That means everything is focused on the God only. Nothing else. So the bhakta has to forget the materialistic life, materialistic requirement also, and fulfillment also. Just devote, that's all. So there is sublimation of emotions rather than suppression. So there is no suppression. Emotion vanishes, demolishes with the process. And it has to. Then only bhakta can progress. So this is very essential requirement. Now how to follow this path? There are some techniques which are being used in our traditional way. Chanting of prayers, then chanting of mantras, then japa of the name of the God, with using the mala and all that, you know very well. Worship or the puja of the God. Then involving in the ceremonies related to God. Arrange different functions. All these are the practices, we can say. And we can say the primary practices. On an advanced level, nothing is required, because everything is to be devoted. But these practices overcome the ego of the aspirant, because he has decided the target, Ishta Devata, the God. And God is ultimate energy, who is doing the whole activities of the universe, we can say. So compared to God, bhakta is a very minor point. So he says, whatever is done, it is done by the God only. I am not doing anything. God is doing. Maybe through me. But ultimately, the controller is God. So with this intention, the ego is being lost. Step by step, of course. So it's fully dependent on God. Also this bhakti, all these techniques develops humanity also, because all human are one. They are supported and organized by God. Rather, it is an assumption that God is present in everybody. Atman is a part and parcel of Paramatman. So all are equal. And they are instruments in the hands of God. So we are instruments. We are not doing anything. We are not stimulating anything. We are just the instruments. And God is functioning through us. This is a intense desire of the bhakta. And that is why the ego goes on diminishing slowly. Now this bhakti is to be cultivated through the constant practice of engaging in meaningful devotional activities. There are a number of devotional activities, as I already explained earlier. Number of devotional activities are there, and the bhakta or aspirant has to get mixed up with that, losing the ego and keeping on focusing on the target of God. Now, describing this Bhakti Yoga in details, Srimad Bhagavat, the stories of Lord Krishna, elaborates 9 forms of bhakti. It is called Navavidha Bhakti. Nava means 9. So 9 types of bhakti. We can say 9 steps or 9 types, we can call it. Let us understand these 9. First is Shravanam. Shravan means listen. These are all in Sanskrit. So Shravan is listen. So what to Shravan? What to listen? Listening the divine glories, miracles, spoken words, etc. of God. So listening everything about the God. And God is a Ishtadevata, as I already explained. It may vary from person to person. In Indian culture, number of gods are there, not only one. Ultimate reality is one, but it is manifested in different Rama, Krishna, and so many other things, Ganpati and Devata and all that. So Bhakta can select any one of that as a Ishta Devata, and that is what I am calling as God now. So the first thing, listen, because listening is very simple. But for listening, somebody must speak, no? And we have to listen about the glories and stories and miracles of God. The person who tells all these things, he must be expert in that. So go on listening as much as possible. So this is the first stage. Just listen, very simple stage. But when you are listening the same thing, similar things again and again and again and again, definitely it will have very good impact on the mental status. So Shravanam also has got very good impact. And now also see, you are listening to me and understanding all these techniques. This is Shravanam only. You are doing Shravanam. That is essential to get the knowledge. So this is first, we can say, step. Second is Kirtan. When you listen so many things, then you can start telling also. If you listen so many stories, then you will also definitely start telling the stories. So similarly, after completing Shravanam for a long time, then you can start Kirtan also. That is, start telling others about the God. Singing is prayers and bhajans and stories, everything. Because for speaking or talking, we need some little more energy. So this is a little bit advanced stage, you can say. Shravanam is very simple. Then you start Kirtan also. Next stage is Vishnu Smaranam. Smaran means remembering. The constant remembrance of the God. And feeling His presence all the time in day-to-day life. Yes. When you listen so many things, then you start talking also so many things, Kirtan also. Then definitely you will remember your God. Continuously, not for a particular period. Throughout the day and night. So that is constant remembrance. That is why it is called Vishnu Smaranam. Next is Pada Sevanam. You see, in Indian culture, when you want to pay a lot of respect, we touch the feet of the Guru or the God or elderly persons. That is our tradition. So here it is an indication that you have to do some physical activity. total surrendering physically and of course mentally also to the God. So it is Pada Sevanam, touching the feet and praying. So that is fourth one. Next one is Archanam, actually worshipping, the process of worshipping, offering the best and also everything to God. When we do worship, there are some idols. We clean them with the water, even the milk and honey. So much process is there, So this is all worshipping. This is all archana. And then we offer good flower, good essence, whatever is best we have, we are offering to that. Offering means sacrificing. So sacrifice also is there and respect also is there. So we have to offer the best, rather everything to God. And by doing this, the devotee derives inner satisfaction and inspiration for further practice. Because his mind also is get involved in that. It's not only physical, it's mental also. So this is all archanam. These are different types one can carry out at different time of the day also. The next stage is vandanam. That is saluting the God throughout the daily working. You have to remember that we have seen Vishnu Smaranam. But just remembering will not help. You have to remember that His greatness, His ultimate reality, His actions, and go on praying, vandanam, saluting. So there is a continuous process. It's not that in 5 minutes in a day you go and pray and salute to the God. No, you have to saluting for throughout the day. And throughout the day we are carrying out our different activities. So while carrying out these activities also we have to remember presence of God, His greatness, and again salute for that. So that is one. Seventh is dasyam, accepting self as a servant of God. God is owner or master, and I am a servant of it. Because when we accept this duty of servant, we have to follow each and everything for the God, by the God. We don't have to think of ourselves. We cannot decide anything at our will. Our will is totally devoted or controlled by the master. So this is dasyam. But this is dasyam for God, not for any other person. Then follow the instructions. Then praise the God because He is master. Serve Him in all respect. So this is a tendency of dasyam, that is servant of God. The next one is sakhyam. Now sakhyam is developing the friendship with God. But this is after after dasyam. First develop the tendency of dasya, servant, wholeheartedly, fully. And then you can go near to the God and try to make friendship with the God. So that is sakhyam. But sakhyam after dasyam, not before. And the last one is Atma Nivedanam. It is actually total devotion of each and everything of the Bhakta to God. Rather including the body, mind and soul also. So this is a total merger, we can say rather. This is the ultimate stage of Bhakti Yoga, and that is the ultimate aim of yoga also. Because at this stage the devotee gains the knowledge of his true self, that is part and parcel of Paramatman, his Atman, like that. And he devotes the same Atman also and becomes one with the God, attaining the final target of Bhakti Yoga. Now, one more important point we have to consider, which is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita. Qualities of Bhakta. Lord Krishna is explaining so many things to Arjuna, but now he is explaining qualities of Bhakta, which we'll note it for our reference. Now, this is the 7th shloka of 16th chapter. Chaturvida bhajante mam janaha sukrituno Arjuna arto jidnyasurartharthi jnani cha bharatarshava. He has given the 4 types. First is Artha. Artha. These are Sanskrit words. Artha means the Bhakta is Bhakta, no doubt, but he is remembering the God in difficulties only. When he is happy, he is not remembering God. He is in trouble, in some difficulties, then definitely remembers God, praise God to get relief from all that. So that is called Artha. The second one is Jidnyasu. And he has got an intense desire for the real knowledge. So Bhakta comes to know that whatever I am observing is not real. It is just temporary. And the ultimate reality is God. Then he wants to know what exactly God is, what exactly I am. So Atman, Paramatman, real knowledge of Atman and Paramatman. And he has got an intense desire to know all these things. And of course then he follows different paths and then he gets the knowledge. So that is Jigyasu or Jidnyasu. The third is Artharthi. And his Bhakta is there, he is praying God. And he wants to get some returns. Oh, this should happen, I must get this much, I must get that much and all that. Because for that he is praying God. That's why he is called Artharthi. So these are all 3 types of Bhaktas only. They are praying God. But their intentions are different. And the last one is Jnani. Surrendering God with real knowledge of Atman and Paramatman. So this is a real Bhakta, we can say. First 3 are, yes, partly we can say. But this is a total Bhakta, I can say. He is totally surrendering God with real knowledge of Atman and Paramatman. So he gets the real knowledge. Bhakta may be first, Artha first, then he can become Jidnyasu. Then we maybe have Artharthi sometimes. But finally he has to become Jnani. And that is a real state of Bhakta, we can say. So these are in Bhagavad Gita. Then also explain the qualities of Bhakta. Santushtaha satatam yogi. Etatma dhrana nishchayaha. Mahyarpita mano buddhihi. Yo mad bhaktas same priya. So Lord Krishna is saying that this type of Bhakta, I like it very much. What is that? He says Bhakta who is always totally satisfied. That means whatever he gets, maybe good things, bad things, positive things, negative things, anything, whatever happens, he is satisfied. So satisfaction is undisturbed by the different events of the life. Then it is self-control. So he decides himself to do something and he does it. So that is self-control. And engage in devotional services with determination. So he is trying to devote in his day-to-day life, physically, mentally, emotionally. And whose mind and intelligence fix on me. And he knows exactly what God is. and intelligent and intellectually also. And accordingly he behaves. So such devotee is very dear to me. That is what Lord. Further he says, Anapeksha Suchir Daksha Udasino Gatavyatha Sarvaramba Parityagi Yomad Bhaktas Same Priya. Lord says, my devotee who is desireless, he doesn't expect anything. He is devoting everything to God, but he is not expecting any return of it. So no expectations. Whatever he gets, he is satisfied. That is what we have seen. He is always satisfied. Then he is pure. His body is pure and mind is pure. Mind is pure with the pure and good and correct thoughts. No conflict in the mind. No doubt in the mind. Then he is very attentive. And is functioning very natural. He is neutral, neither involved in happiness nor involved in sadness. He is not disturbed by happiness or sadness. And so he is not suffering from any miseries. So such bhakta, and who is not starting any action for results. He is doing karmas. Actions are karmas. He is doing karmas, but there is no expectation that I done this thing, I want this return. He doesn't have any expectation for the results. That is a very important aspect which is explained in Bhagavad Gita. Karmanyeva adhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. So bhakta also must be like that. He is doing the karmas but without any expectations. So this is a good quality of bhakti. Further it is said, Yo na rushyati na dvashti, na shochati na kankshati, shubha shubha parityagi bhaktimanyah same priyaha. Who neither rejoices nor grieves. He is not becoming happy and not becoming sad also. With anything, whatever happens with him. Who neither laments nor desires, and who is beyond auspicious or inauspicious things. So it's just like Sthita Prajna, you might have known. Both the things, good or bad, is not affecting him. So such bhakta is good. So that is the quality of bhakta. If something happens positive for him, still he is not disturbed. Something happens negative for him, still he is not disturbed. He must be perfectly balanced. Then only he can become a good bhakta. Further, he has got an equal feeling for the friends and enemies. Samaha shatrau cha mitre cha tatha manapamanayoho shitoshna sukha dukkheshu samaha sangha vivarjitaha. Whether a person is a friend or enemy, he has got an equal feeling. Normally, for a friend we have good feeling and for enemies we have got bad feelings. But for bhakta, it must be equal. Because he thinks that everything is a part and parcel of a God. Everything is Atman, and Atman is common for all. Then who is neutral with honor or dishonor? Somebody praises him, gives the honor. Still he is not becoming very, very happy. If somebody is dishonored him, abuses him, still he is not disturbed. So he is not disturbed by honor or dishonor. Not disturbed with the hot or cold and happiness or distress. That means these are the dualities of life. And these dualities, they are disturbing our mental status. But as it is said, that bhakta is not disturbed with all these dualities. Even friends, enemies, honor, dishonor, hot and cold, happiness, distress, nothing. So he is a best devotee or best. Tulya ninda stutir mauni santushto yena kenachit अनिकेतः स्थिरमतिः भक्तिमान् मे प्रियो नरः. That means the bhakta who remains undisturbed in his praising or blaming. Same thing in different words it is mentioned. And who is satisfied with whatever he receives, whatever, it may not be to his expectation. Basically, he doesn't have any expectation. So whatever is received, he has to be satisfied. That is a normal thing. And he is not affected to the materialistic life. Because in materialistic life, there are so many positive, negative things are happening every now and then. But he remains unaffected throughout the life. And he is fixed in determination and engaged in devotional services for the God. Explained in Bhagavad Gita. There are so many shlokas are there. I selected the shlokas which are mentioned in your guidebook to our reference. And some point is there for mantra also. Chanting of mantra, rather it's a mantra yoga, but this point is included at the end of the Bhakti Yoga in the guidebook. So when there is a chanting of mantras and prayers in the group, it affects the total dynamics, group dynamics. Because everybody is chanting same thing and mantra has got a powerful meaning also, powerful effect also. So that effects on everybody, that effect is similar. So the whole group gets changed or modified, we can say, particularly the mental condition. The thoughts are streamlined with God and all minds become one because of this mantra chanting in a group. And this chanting leads to merger of all senses into one, and finally transcendence of mind happens. This has been proved. A lot of research is going on, particularly chanting of mantras also, in group also. So all these are the outcome of the modern research. And particularly the Sanskrit chants, in particular the mantras, a very profound effect on the mind and consciousness, that is Atman. And effect is of development, that is expected. That is a mantra chanting in group also helps to develop this ability. Now then Kirtan and Bhajan, which we had discussed earlier, it also brings the relief to the mind and body. Because of its chanting as well as because of its meaning also. And of course the devotion towards that. All these things definitely have got a good effect to relieve the stress on the mind and body. And this Kirtan and Bhajan, this also helps to eliminate any external disturbance in our environment and help to focus the mind towards the God. So it helps for Bhakti Yoga also. Now a very small point I will just to indicate Narada Bhakti Sutra. When we are discussing about Bhakti and Navavidha Bhakti, we must know this. See, one of the supreme Bhakta is Narada. We are always chanting Narayan, Narayan, you know very well. So that Narada has written some Bhakti Sutras. So he has given the detailed explanation of Bhakti in 84 Sutras. They are called Narada Bhakti Sutra. And it is very famous. Just like Navavidha Bhakti, Narada Bhakti Sutra also is very famous in Sanskrit, of course. Of course, this is not included in our total syllabus. But when we think of Bhakti Yoga, we must know the Narada Bhakti Sutra is there. And it's very interesting to study these sutras also. So let us stop here. Hari Om. Hari Om.